In the soft dawn of an Andalusian spring, the mist clung low to the fields like a secret. Between the olive trees and golden grass, a small rabbit struggled to breathe. Her fur, once snow-white, was now matted with dust and fear. She limped along the edge of an abandoned meadow. Her right leg twisted from a steel snare that had long since rusted away. Her name was Lira, though no one knew it yet. The meadow had once belonged to a quiet woman named Isabella Morales, who'd inherited her grandfather's land after years of city life. She returned to the countryside, seeking peace and silence, not realizing that silence often hides cries unheard. That morning, while tending to her garden, Isabella noticed something small moving near the stone fence. At first, she thought it was just the wind playing with leaves, but then she saw two trembling ears poking from the tall grass. When she approached, the rabbit tried to run, but the moment her paw touched the earth, she collapsed. The sound she made wasn't a scream, it was the kind of silence that hurts to hear. Isabella knelt beside her, whispering softly in Spanish, "Tranquila, Piquia, no voy a hacerte dao. Easy, little one. I won't hurt you." The rabbit's breathing was shallow. Her body was thin enough that Isabella could feel her heart beating like a drum trapped in paper. It was a rhythm of fear and survival. She wrapped Lira gently in her scarf and carried her inside. That night, the old farmhouse glowed faintly under the moonlight. In a small wooden box lined with straw, Lira trembled, half awake, half frozen between worlds of pain and confusion. Isabella watched her for hours, listening to the tiny creatures, breathing, wondering how something so fragile could still fight to live. For Isabella, this was supposed to be a quiet life, but fate had brought her something different, something small, terrified, and in desperate need of hope. The first week was a battle of silence. Lira wouldn't eat, wouldn't move, wouldn't even look at Isabella. Every time Isabella entered the room, Lira pressed herself into the farthest corner of her box, her chest rising and falling like a frightened bird's. The woman tried everything: fresh lettuce, carrots, soft hay, but the rabbit only stared with hollow eyes. Isabella began to realize that Lira wasn't just hurt, she was broken in a way that food or medicine couldn't fix. So she changed her approach. Each morning before sunrise, Isabella would bring her chair near the box, sit quietly, and simply be there. No words, no movement, only the slow sound of her breathing. Minutes became hours. Sometimes she read aloud, softly, old poetry her grandmother once loved. Other times, she hummed lullabies she hadn't sung since childhood. Days passed, and something began to shift. On the fifth morning, Lira twitched her nose toward the air, catching the scent of the apples Isabella had left nearby. She didn't move closer, but she didn't turn away either. By the second week, Lira was eating regularly and even cleaning her fur, a small, miraculous sign of hope. Her injured leg still trembled, but Isabella's neighbor, an old veterinarian named Don Rafael, made a tiny splint from thin wood and cloth. He said quietly, "She'll walk again, but only if she wants to." And Lira did want to. She wanted to live. Each sunset, Isabella would open the window so the little rabbit could watch the meadow from afar. Lira would lift her head toward the wind, her whiskers trembling as if remembering something once lost, the freedom of grass beneath her paws, the rhythm of wild life before the snare. But healing is never a straight path. One evening, after nearly 3 weeks, Isabella decided to let Lira out of her box. She prepared a soft corner of the kitchen, placed food nearby, and opened the lid. At first, Lira only peeked out. For a few seconds, she froze, then began to explore, her steps uneven but determined. Isabella's eyes filled with tears. It was the first time she had seen the rabbit choose to move since that morning in the meadow. However, the next day brought a storm both outside and within. While cleaning, Isabella accidentally dropped a pot. The loud crash echoed through the kitchen, and in an instant, Lira bolted in blind panic. Her fragile body slammed against the wall, and her injured leg twisted again. She screamed, a sharp, haunting sound that filled the entire farmhouse. Isabella rushed over, heart pounding. Lira trembled violently, trying to escape the invisible danger. The woman knew if she reached too fast, she'd make it worse. So she sat down, voice trembling, but soft. "Shh, you're safe, Piquia. You're safe. Minutes passed before the trembling stopped. That night, Isabella didn't sleep. She sat beside Lira's box until morning, whispering apologies to a creature who couldn't understand her words, but somehow, perhaps, understood her heart. Healing takes patience, and sometimes, it takes breaking twice before something can truly mend. By the fourth week, the meadow had begun to bloom again. Wild poppies danced in the wind, and bees returned to the lavender fields. In the farmhouse, Lira had grown stronger, her fur clean, her eyes bright, her heart calmer. The day finally came when Isabella opened the door to the old meadow and placed the wooden box in the grass. The rabbit didn't move at first. She simply looked at Isabella with eyes no longer full of terror but of quiet understanding. Then, in one slow motion, Lira hopped out. She sniffed the ground, twitching her ears toward the rustling of the grass. Every sound, every breeze seemed to welcome her home. She took one hesitant step, then another, until the fear melted away and instinct took over. Lira ran, not fast, not perfectly, but freely. Her splinted leg moved stiffly at first, then found rhythm with the rest of her body. The meadow that had once been her prison became her freedom again.